Hello monofilm viewers, how are we all doing? It's been a while. I'm sorry I haven't been back on. I'm not going to bullshit with the excuses because I haven't been on, so there you go. What I want to talk to you is fairly topical, and I felt like I should kind of touch on it because it's been all over the news and all over everywhere and everybody's campaigning and it's all a big thing. And provide you with my perspective, which, you know, you can value it if you like, and if you don't, then you don't, whatever. And I'd say it's more of a cautionary thing than it is necessarily a sort of demand as such, but you know, you do what you want with it. So it's about the Charlie Hebdo thing and how, you know, some people got killed by a terrorist or a group of terrorists or whatever, a terrorist attack. Obviously it's bad, you know, I'm not going to sit here and say that that's not a good thing, not a bad thing, sorry. Because it's horrible, you know. A group of people got killed by terrorists or got killed by gunmen, which is, you know, it's a nasty thing. I mean, it does happen all over the world, quite a lot. So, you know, isolating it as an incident in itself is, yeah, okay, fair enough. And well, let me put it as bluntly as I possibly can. Je ne suis pas Charlie, from my perspective, on the grounds that, although I'm not for terrorism, obviously, and I think, you know, any sort of force like that is trying to change something that's potentially sort of free speaking is also a bad thing, because, you know, I wouldn't be here without free speech and the power to inform, well, not inform, but talk to the masses, if you will. But at the same time, for me, the Je suis Charlie thing has kind of become an excuse for racism, if I'm perfectly honest. Like, it's kind of born out of something potentially quite, well, I'm not even sure if it's born out of something potentially quite promising, because, you know, it's saying you're sort of for something which was basically very offensive all the time. And, you know, there was an argument the other day that it's, you know, it's because it's French, it's sort of withholding their satirical values and stuff like that, and it's a bit like, well, it wasn't that clever, it was kind of washed up, was kind of tired, obvious, boring, offensive humour that was targeted quite a lot at specific groups. I don't think it was as wide as some people, you know, like South Park for instance, it's can way across the line quite a lot, but when it doesn't, actually it sort of targets everyone. It doesn't really narrow it down and doesn't tiptoe around stuff. It's quite sort of fierce, if you like. These guys are a little bit more tiptoey, and I don't really have any respect for people that are tiptoey, because in my eyes, if you're going to be offensive, you've got to be offensive to everyone in the name of equality, if you like. Otherwise it's not really satirical, it's kind of targeted humour, and I'm not a big fan of that. Yeah, so I mean, and I think all the people that turn out on the streets and all the sort of protests and campaigns and people, you know, celebrities and politicians and stuff that are getting all behind it, it's kind of become a bit of a barrage against brown people, you know? And we've got way too much of that already. We have far too much kind of UKIP, blame the brown people for everything stuff, and I think if you're, I mean, you know, not actually narrowing down to literally brown people, but Muslims basically. It's kind of been channeled into an anti-Muslim thing, and we have to remember, like some brilliant man said on Radio 4, who I cannot remember the name of because I'm terrible with names, said, look, to be honest, it's a tiny group of people, you know, just like Christians have their fundamentalists, just like atheists have their fundamentalists, just like Jewish people have their fundamentalists. Every group has a fundamentalist section, and they tend to be a little bit off the wall and push things to a ridiculously, you know, an extremist extent, because that's what extremist means. You're pushing things to the way beyond the limit, you know. There's sort of one thing of preaching hatred, there's another thing of kind of threatening people, and then there's another thing of actually physically killing people, which is another subject for another time, as, you know, wars, etc. But, you know, I don't believe that this is a good enough excuse for racism. I don't believe it's a good enough excuse for it's not even that it's being as obvious as sort of segregating Muslim people, but I would imagine if I was a Muslim person in France at the moment, and potentially across the EU or Europe generally, sorry, that I would feel a little bit kind of overwhelmed and potentially sort of put in a corner, like potentially a bit segregated. I mean, even more segregated than I potentially would already feel. But you know, you would kind of be, if you walk down the street and saw a Je suis Charlie protest or campaign or whatever on your streets, and you know, hundreds of people potentially started to look at you, and a percentage of those people were sort of putting you in a terrorism box, I'd feel pretty shit. And I think we have to be very fucking careful about what we're doing with this stuff, you know. Yes, it's awful what happened, and I don't think that anybody should lose their life at the hands of another person at all. And on that grounds, it's a bad thing. On every other ground, you know, the sort of Muslims that are speaking out against Charlie Hebdo and saying you can't possibly print an image of the Prophet Muhammad, that's kind of, for me, from my perspective, I think that's potentially going too far. But at the same time, you know, just as they apparently have, you know, Charlie Hebdo, etc., have their right to free speech and right to be offensive, the Muslim people that were speaking out against Charlie Hebdo and saying you shouldn't, you know, publicise pictures of the Prophet Muhammad, have also got their right to say that. And, you know, I don't agree with either, but it doesn't mean they don't have the right to say it. It's all sort of got caught up in this thing of, yeah, sort of shunning Muslims into a corner, and I'm not a big fan of that. You know, we do that all the time. We're constantly blaming Muslims for whatever you like, the economy, you know, rape, whatever. You know, we sort of, all of the sort of stories you hear about groomed women, or groomed sort of young women and men, usually involve an Asian man or a Muslim man, and yes, okay, maybe there's a larger percentage that do that, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen with other sort of, well, with other people, you know, with people who aren't Muslim. And it's kind of, all of that sort of stuff plays into the anti-Muslim media message, and that's all a little bit Fox News for me. You like that little one there, Fox News? Yeah, because they're a bunch of racist bastards. What? And the stuff they said recently, I mean, that for me is basically what Fox News wants to say on a daily basis. It's just somebody is a little bit smarter than that to allow that to be said, or apparently not in this case. So yeah, that's kind of my piece. I don't know how you feel about it, but that's how I feel about it. I'm not sold on Je suis Charlie, and therefore je ne suis pas Charlie. My French is terrible, as you can tell. And I would strongly advise. This is my point, and this is sort of how I would approach it in terms of my videos potentially influencing people one way or another. Because it's up to you. You make your own fucking mind up. But I would strongly advise you think fucking carefully before you hold up a Je suis Charlie banner or whatever, because of what it might imply and what the sort of connotations are of that, and potentially how you may make someone else feel. If you have a Muslim friend and you held up a Je suis Charlie banner in front of him or her, how would that make them feel? You know, be a little bit more tactful about it, I would say. You know, support people who died doing what they believe was the right thing to do, but don't sort of condemn an entire section of people. Well, section sounds terrible, but an entire group of people on the premise that they believe in Muhammad instead of Jesus. You know, it's, come on, like, sort it out for fuck's sake. Yeah, so that's my bit. Just think what you will, and yeah, other than that, subscribe, like it, do whatever you like with it, go on the Tumblr, and the rest is history. Alright, see you later, bye bye!